issues ever to affect the St. Lucian citizen. It's an issue we all grapple with, big or small, rich or poor. We all must contend with the cost of living. You can't escape it, St. Lucia. There's nowhere that you can go that will cause you to live in a different way where the cost of living doesn't affect you. In fact, there is no way to live where the cost of living will not affect you. No matter what you do, whether you are big or small, whether you are at whatever stage you are in your life, you will have to contend with the cost of living. In some cases, the cost of living affects you and you're not even in the country. Because we all know that there are situations in St. Lucia and around the world where families depend on monies sent by relatives abroad to complement or supplement their income. We have situations where spouses are overseas, working on the cruise ship, working in another country, and the other ones sending monies back to take care of medical expenses, to take care of educational expenses, to take care of living expenses, and so on and so forth. They support their elderly parents, they support their children, they support their spouses, businesses, siblings, you name it. It happens. The person who makes the most foots the bill for the country, for the family. Especially in St. Lucia, there is a culture of collaboration. And I've heard several politicians mention it, where persons in families in St. Lucia or in St. Lucian families, we pool our resources in order to keep the family going. What in Creole we say, couvert des faux, y'en a lot. And it is a custom that St. Lucians practice both at home and in the diaspora. More so in the diaspora, you have many family members who live overseas and work overseas who send money to their relatives, be it their spouses, their kids, the extended family, elderly parents, so on and so forth, in order to supplement or augment the income of the family and keep the ship afloat. And we're not the only ones talking about it. I happened to catch the presentation made by Senator Tommy Descat in the upper house, and I was quite impressed with his dissection of the problem or the issue. And I think it's something worth revisiting. Because you see, I read that many of the Caribbean islands, our neighboring islands, are adjusting their fuel prices. In fact, I was informed that in the island of Anguilla, fuel prices have gone up to almost $20 per gallon. In St. Lucia, we are at $16 a gallon for now, because the Prime Minister did say that the fuel prices will be capped for a period of about 3 weeks. But if you're like me and you pay attention to the price of oil per barrel on the global market, you've come to the realization that it is inevitable. The cost of fuel will rise in St. Lucia. And I'm not just speaking about fuel at the pump, fuel per gallon. I'm also referring to fuel LPG gas, which is the cooking gas that we use on the island. I'm referring to the fuel surcharge charged by Lucelec to the consumer for the cost of producing electricity on island. I'm also referring to the domino effect that these incidents will have on every other industry in St. Lucia. Manufacturing, distribution, goods and services, water, internet, and the list goes on and on and on. And the biggest one for St. Lucian families, the cost of goods on supermarket shelves. We're all feeling the pinch as it is. And we need to understand exactly what is going on so that we know how to adjust ourselves, how to adjust our consumption so that we can run our homes sustainably. Guys, this is a serious matter. And we need to understand what is really going on so that we know how to best position ourselves for sustainability. St. Lucian households are suffering. We are the ones who are going to feel the pinch. Now, I know that we recently had a budget presentation, the biggest budget to date in the country's history. And several individuals take that to be a triumph. And we have the big numbers. But what does it all really mean? $2.18 billion. Many of us cannot even fathom that amount of money. And we don't understand. We just hear the numbers and we hear the government's going to do this, do that, do this, do that, this, that, the other. But what does it mean for individual St. Lucians? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for me? Now, these are the questions that I sought to answer because I figure as a journalist, it is my duty to inform the public. But as a St. Lucian citizen, it is my duty to understand what exactly my government, because hey, these are the tools that we have been given to work with, majority rules, right? What is my government doing to help me? How do I benefit? In other words, $2.18 billion, what's in it for me? And so I sought to get clarity and to provide some clarity to my listeners, because I know you guys, you're as concerned as I am. You hear these big numbers and you wonder, where is it coming from? And when we get it, where is it going? And what does it really mean? So, seeing as the lower house, which is the parliament, seems to have descended into some kind of chaos. I mean, really, what do you learn from the lower house these days? Except how to mépriser other members of parliament. I'm sorry, guys, but the minute I heard a government minister stand up in the parliament a few years ago and say, Mr. Speaker, could you please ask the honorable member from so-and-so not to put his tongue in my tongue? I thought, nothing more for me to learn here. So I switched to the upper house to see what I can glean and what Tommy Descott, our resident economist and statistician, had to say was extremely interesting and warrants a review. So guys, the same way we listen to the Prime Minister and the ministers when we want to understand something or want to know what's going on, I also like to give you a balanced view. And so we listen to the opposition to hear their take on the issues that affect the wider public. So permit me to bring to you Senator Tommy Descott. You know that when Tommy delivers a speech, he dissects the issues and he breaks it down so that even the layman can understand. And this is what I really wanted to bring out to the public today. Now, as you know, I am trying. I will attempt to get Mr. Descott to join us, but I have not had the opportunity to pin him down for a date. You know, the gentleman is quite busy, but he has promised to send me a more detailed dissection of the issues. We await that, and as soon as I receive it, I will announce it and we will play it. But for now, let us take in part of his presentation to the to the Senate, where he speaks on the cost of living and what it means for every St. Lucian. I bring you Senator Tommy Descott talking about cost of living. Take a listen.
Design, organize, and pursue the purpose. So, Madam President, I will turn to the issue of cost of living. Madam President, if there is one arena in which this government has failed St. Lucia, it is the handling of cost of living crisis. A crisis that reaches into every kitchen, every pocket, and every household in this country. Let's take fuel pricing, for example. Madam President, permit me to interrogate the government's handling of fuel pricing in this economy, its overall fuel pricing policy, and the public pronouncement made to justify its actions where fuel prices are concerned. For over 2 years, Madam President, the government set aside and abandoned the fuel pricing mechanism, and the country was left to speculate as to why. Finally, the Minister for Finance on Tuesday, April 21, 2026, offered an explanation for the policy adopted by him and his cabinet in his appropriation bill rebuttal. It is an explanation that deserves to be placed on record, Madam President, examined in daylight, and judged by its consequences. And I quote, "The micro effects of bringing down the price of gas would cause an increase in consumption which would have probably gone to things which may not have been productive. I want this to sink in. I want the micro effects of bringing down the price of gas would cause an increase in consumption which would have probably gone to things which may have been productive. Madam President, let us accept for a moment that the Prime Minister understanding of consumer fuel is correct. That is to say, when the country is entitled one thing above all else, he has to be consistent in his application. He has to be consistent in his application. So, should not the same reason apply to the introduction of the minimum wage? Should not the same reason apply to increasing civil servants' wages and one of 500 bonuses? In every case, Madam President, the effect is the same, whether you lower fuel prices, raise wages, pay bonuses, you place more disposable income in the hands of the ordinary solution. If we follow the finance minister's economic logic further, Madam President, we are asked to accept that when ordinary people have a little more disposable income, it simply translates into increased consumption, and that consumption will be directed towards what he deems may not have been productive. That's a damning statement. Madam President, when a household spends a little more to put nutritious food on the table, that is not unproductive consumption. It is a human development in its simplest form. And when the bus driver and the taxi driver, who ought to have kept between $5,000 and $8,000 more in his pocket over the last 2 years, if fuel prices in St. Lucia will lower, uses that money to perhaps put an additional room on his home or purchase another vehicle to earn a better living, that too is not waste. It is investments by ordinary people in their own security and opportunity. You see, Madam President, with such flawed economic reasoning, it is no surprise the economy flatlined in 2025. This logic treats fuel as if it was only a consumer item and forgets the plain reality that fuel is a vital input into production, transportation, agriculture, construction, and manufacturing. Lowering fuel prices, therefore, does not merely ease household pressure. It also reduces production costs, improves competitiveness, and support job creation. But above all, Madam President, this statement confirms a long-held conviction of mine about the government's philosophy, the governing philosophy of the Labour Party. It believes that the government, the almighty state, is better at allocating resources more wisely and efficiently than the people who own them. Yes. That is the doctrine. It is a doctrine of control masquerading as care and compassion. That's what it is. Madam President, even now, the government shows a reluctance to admit that it mishandled fuel pricing. But the reality has a way of demanding a reckoning. The government is now confronted with a burden, I'm hearing now, negative excise tax on fuel products. Negative excise tax. At the very moment when wholesalers and retailers are pressing this government for increasing the margin. Madam President, this government has no moral authority where fuel pricing is concerned. Having kept prices artificially high when global prices were low, and having distorted the fuel pricing mechanism into a revenue maximizing instrument. You have no moral authority. You have failed solutions where fuel pricing is concerned. Food inflation, Madam President. Madam President, the government handling of food inflation has been equally dismal, and the record proves it. I remind this Honorable House and the country that when the government announced its policy to zero-rate 70 items, the opposition rightly so raised the alarm and said 25 of these items were already exempt. And after substantial pushback, The government came in this house and zero-rated 25 items that were already exempt. And we told them so. The Minister for Commerce went and made a noise, the Prime Minister. But after substantial pushback, the government returned here in its chamber on December 16, Madam President, to de-exempt those 25 items. That is not decisive leadership. It's politics placed above the well-being of the St. Lucian people. Now, Madam President, St. Lucians now are faced with a sudden jump in their electricity bills. And the government has brought no serious relief to this house for the struggling citizens. Yet, I will tell the country this, while households are paying more for electricity, on page 14 of the estimates of revenue expenditure, the government is projecting to collect $6.2 million in dividends from Luselec in 2026. I want that to sink in. 6.2 on page 14 of the estimate. Wait, my sister. That is the hard truth. And it demands the harder answer. Furthermore, Madam President, the government is projecting to collect $24.8 million in electricity fuel surcharge. 24 on page 16 of the estimates of revenue. 20. Let me tell you something. Luselec has taken the brunt. But you know who benefits from the surcharge going up? The government. And it moved from $6 million in 2024 to $20.48 million in 2020. I wonder if the government had a crystal ball to know that fuel price was going to go up. Because I cannot understand how you would project revenues of $24.8 million on page 16 of the estimates. Page 16, estimates of revenue. This is an unconscionable government by all imaginations. Now, Madam President, this government made it clear with its choice. If it can project $6.2 million of dividends from Luselec and $24.8 million in fuel surcharge, then it can sit with Luselec and structure a transparent net-off arrangement so that what the state takes in dividends and fuel surcharge can be used to relieve solutions in the higher electricity bills. So, Madam President, it is not new. We in the United Workers' Party did it during the pandemic, and several other governments in the region are acting decisively to cushion the impact of inflation. Barbados, for example, has taken steps to absorb 50% of what it calls its fuel clause adjustment, which is its version of the fuel surcharge. Barbados has implemented a 3-month hedge, has locked in the price of heavy fuel oil imported into the country at US $92 per barrel. And the government, and we said it to the government, that it has moved in Barbados to calculate the VAT and import duty on items on the FOB, the free on board value, rather than the higher CIF value, ensuring that inflation is not compounded at the borders. We said it to this government. Do it. You have 5 minutes. Thank you, Madam President. You will give me a few minutes. Madam President, I shall give you 5 minutes. Thank you. Barbados is not tinkering with a few VAT rates, nor is it playing politics with its fuel price buildup. It has conceptualized a coherent package of support to protect Belgians from the impact of inflation. The same cannot be said about the St. Lucia Labour Party. Once again, it has failed on fuel pricing in this country.
Well, not only does Senator Descart give us a comprehensive view of every aspect of this cost of living crisis, but he also juxtaposes what our government is doing against what Barbados, our sister island, is doing. And you have here a full look, so to speak, a full view, an overall view of what exactly people in St. Lucia are faced with. Now, Tommy makes a very important point. when he says that in the budget presentation, the government had already projected to collect 6 point something million dollars in dividends from Lucelec and over $20 million in the fuel surcharge. So while we are jumping on Lucelec and saying that Lucelec is unconscionably raising the fuel surcharge from 7 cents a kilowatt to 25.5 cents a kilowatt, they're not the ones collecting the lion's share of the money. The lion's share is going to the government of St. Lucia. Now, I wonder how Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre justifies this, because you do recall, St. Lucia, the Prime Minister stating boldly in his budget presentation that there would be no new taxes. It seems the Prime Minister forgot to inform the public that while there will not be a new tax heading, that doesn't mean that St. Lucians would not be paying more just to live in St. Lucia. Because think about it, guys. What can you do without electricity? Back in the 1800s and the 1900s, before electricity was invented, maybe the 16 and 1500s, persons used candles. We warmed our food over open fires. We used irons, cordless irons that we placed over coal to iron our clothes. But can you see yourself going back to doing that? Can you see yourself living without the simple pleasure of a glass of ice cold water on a very hot day? Because that simple luxury is one that you will not, especially us in the Caribbean, will not enjoy without the miracle that is electricity. Some of us can barely live without our air conditioning. I know I can't. When I'm at home, it's like I am defrosting. It is so hot, especially now that we are edging closer and closer to the summer. So, can we in St. Lucia live without electricity? And even so, people might say, well, maybe this is motivation for us to move to clean energy. I agree. At home, my family has taken the decision to gradually move towards clean energy, and we've already converted all of our lighting to solar lights. That's why when there was this blackout on Friday night, I had no idea, because there were lights in my house. But how is the average St. Lucian to afford this shift? Because telling yourself that you're going to switch to solar power is one thing. Actually making it happen, something else. Solar systems that power an entire house, that provide you not just with simple lights, and even the simple lights are expensive, but systems that power your fridge, your washing machine, your television, your lighting, your full house. They run in the tens of thousands of dollars. Even the government of St. Lucia has not taken the move to switch from fossil fuel to solar power in government ministries. So, how is it that the average St. Lucian can save themselves from paying those millions in fuel surcharge just for electricity? Think about it. The fuel surcharge for April jumped from 7 cents per kilowatt to 25.5 cents. Now, from 7 to 25 is a huge jump. But also, households, the average household uses tens of thousands of kilowatts. And several St. Lucians have seen the huge leap that their bills, their electricity bills, have taken for the month of April. And also, remember, the cost of electricity determines the price of everything in St. Lucia. Wasco uses electricity to pump and distribute its water. It also uses electricity to purify the water. So, the cost of electricity is ultimately, without a doubt, going to impact the cost of water. Then there is the cost of other services, for example, cable and internet. Now again, I ask you, St. Lucia, while some of us may be able to live without the luxury of cable, how many of you can live without the internet? The internet has become a vital tool in commerce, in education, in healthcare, in every aspect of our lives. You walk around with your phone, which is using the internet every day, every minute. If you don't have cable, you jump on the internet and you watch Netflix. Some households have done away with cable altogether and are using smart TVs and an internet connection to watch whatever they feel like. Businesses such as ours, a radio station, this radio station, cannot function without an internet connection. So you see how important the internet has become. And with the price, a huge hike in the price of fuel, the cost of internet is not far behind. The price of fuel doesn't only affect drivers or transportation, it affects everything. Do you understand the gravity of this situation? This energy crisis, just imagine, St. Lucia, if our government, because it is inevitable, guys, the cost of oil on the global market is rising. The longer this conflict in Iran continues, the longer the Strait of Hormuz remains barricaded or impassable to shippers transporting fuel from the Middle East to the rest of the world, the higher the cost of fuel on the global market. This isn't something that is far away, guys. You have to understand the gravity of the situation that we now face. The cost of goods, the cost of fuel determines the cost of shipping. The cost of shipping determines the cost of goods on supermarket shelves. And let me tell you something. The Prime Minister can go on and on and on till he's blue in the face, asking people to grow what they eat and eat what they grow. But what exactly can we grow? Farmers in St. Lucia are struggling. The cost of fertilizers, pesticides, packaging materials, tools, even planting material has skyrocketed in the past couple of years. The agricultural industry is one that has not fully recovered since COVID and the supply chain issues that resulted in its wake. And now, let's be honest, the cost of the food that we grow keeps rising day by day. The cost of seedlings, the cost of pesticides, because when you plant food, you attract pests. You attract certain diseases that affect the plant, and so on and so forth. The Prime Minister is saying, even if you live in the CDC, you need to grow something in your backyard. Now, I have no doubt that persons in the CDC can grow stuff. They can probably grow tomatoes or herbs on their balcony. Herbs and spices, maybe. I don't know what they can grow, but I think about it. But can they grow anything substantial to feed their families? They can't grow rice. They can't grow sweet potato, even if he provides the seeds. They cannot grow dasheen or plant a banana tree in their balcony. They still have to depend on Massey stores or the Castries market. How are St. Lucian families to cope with all of these costs? And Anguilla has raised the price of fuel to $19.95. What happens when the other countries in the OECS decide to raise their prices? And it is inevitable, guys. If we are already struggling with fuel prices capped at $16 a gallon, what is to become of St. Lucia when, let's not say if, let's not be naive, when the fuel prices jump? You would recall, St. Lucia, that at one point fuel prices reached as high as $17.95. And at that point, St. Lucian families were clamoring for relief. I don't recall hearing anything in the budget to cushion the impact of rising costs on St. Lucian families. What is to become of us? In this budget, where is the relief for the bus drivers? Because if the cost of fuel reaches any higher, you remember when the cost of fuel was $17.95, bus drivers called for an increase in bus fare, and they were granted that increase. So if the cost of fuel goes back up to $17.95, I'm not even going to, there's power in the tongue, I don't even want to mention St. Lucia's cost of fuel going up to almost $20 a gallon. Can we sustain another hike in the cost of transportation? Some bus stands received an extra 25 cents, some 50 cents, some as much as $1. The price of bread went up, and none of those costs have since gone back down, and they will not go back down. They will remain that way forever and ever. Amen. So, can St. Lucian sustain another hike in the price of bread? Can we sustain another hike in the price of transportation in bus fares? Because these things are inevitable. Can families tighten their belts any more? Because going to the supermarket now, you are forced to pick and choose what is most essential. It is very difficult for poor families, let me not say poor families, for any family except the uber rich, to go to the supermarket and pick up everything that they want in one go and be able to pay for it comfortably without feeling the pinch. I saw the last fuel adjustment. The 100-pound cylinder is now priced at over $200 a cylinder. Do you know, or are you aware, that it's mostly elderly folks, retired persons who can't really go and buy a small tank of gas every minute? They are the ones who utilize the 100-pound cylinders. Our retirees, our pensioners. Whenever they talk about the 100-pound cylinder, people always talk about restaurants and businesses, but they forget that our retired persons, most of them, most houses where retired persons live, they've switched from the 20-pound cylinder to the 100-pound cylinder because it is more convenient for them. And they are the ones who are forced to pay this exorbitant price. Almost $100 US for one tank of gas. That is equivalent to the price of one barrel of oil on the global market. Let's put it into perspective. Somebody just said that the price of fuel, gas at the pump in America has gone up to $5, and people are complaining. $5 US, to my mind, is less than what we pay in St. Lucia currently for a gallon of fuel. Yeah, $5 US is $13.50. St. Lucians currently pay $16. So, how are we to cope? And guys, as much as everybody's hyped up about the jazz festival right now and then carnival later, but after jazz and after carnival, we have the opening of the new school year, where parents now have to pay higher prices for school books, school bags, school shoes, uniforms. And when the price of fuel rises, this is going to translate into higher costs for food, higher costs for transportation, higher costs for education. Have we really sat down and thought about these possibilities? When we listen to the policies put forth by the government in this latest budget, where is the relief? The role of government is not to provide citizens with handouts and supplements to their income. The role of government is to provide an enabling environment for citizens to take care of themselves. Provide proper infrastructure. Provide avenues for education. Create jobs so that persons can feed themselves and their families. Are we seeing this in this new budget? Now, I pose the question to you, my audience. When you listen to the policies put forth by this government, when you listen to what is going on around you, and you listen to the government's projections of how much money they are looking to collect from the fuel surcharge, from dividends from Lucelec, and remember, dividends to shareholders are based on the company's profits. When you think of the rising cost of fuel, because doesn't matter how you look at it, we in St. Lucia, we do not have a say in the price of oil on the global market. We have no power to influence that, yet we depend on oil for every industry. We depend on fuel for everything. Is there anything in this budget that is supposed to provide relief for St. Lucian families? And yet we see the government doing an extraordinary amount of borrowing, and this $2.18 billion budget. And a lot of people hear these big numbers, and you know what they think? Oh, the country is doing well. We have a lot of money to spend. They don't realize that the bulk of this comes from borrowing. Or in our case, more than half of this budget is coming directly from the public purse. It's coming from you, it's coming from me. If you recall, the government had a $2 billion budget last year. They collected $1.48 billion in taxes. This year, they have a $2.18 billion. They've done an extraordinary amount of borrowing and are still looking to siphon money from the public purse. How are we to cope, St. Lucia? What is your take? I want to hear from you. Have you really thought about these possibilities? Let's turn our attention to the WhatsApp platform. Let me see what people are thinking as they allow these these issues to sink in, to see what exactly or how exactly are they thinking about these developments. Somebody is saying, what's wrong with them on the government side? Not hearing them debunking. Well, how do you debunk the truth? Somebody else says, Alison Joe was manhandled by UWP senators. Imagine the lady defending that PJP didn't say he didn't understand the impact of tourism. I don't even know how to respond to that. And I do have the clip that this listener is referring to when it was Tommy Descat who was speaking about the tourism numbers and the impact of tourism and commending the Prime Minister for learning, because the Prime Minister did say, he said it at a meeting in the diaspora. I think, if I'm not mistaken, if memory serves me correctly, I think it was a meeting in the UK for persons in the diaspora about tourism, where he and the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Tourism, Dr. Ernest Hill, attended. The Prime Minister said that he had no idea how important tourism was, and everyone was concerned because the man had spent 5 years as the Minister of Tourism. So what was he doing during that time? Anyway, I digress. So how is it that Ms. Shah feels that she can defend that? I think she's just defending for defending's sake. Somebody else says she's so fake. Another person's asked that 1995, but how much was it before that? Let me see if I can find out. Again, guys, I am very, very attached to the internet. I don't think I can live without it. Okay, as of April 30th, 2026, the government of Anguilla has set the maximum price for gasoline at EC 19.8 per imperial gallon, EC 22.63 without exemptions. Wow. To control costs for consumers according to the maximum gasoline price order. Prices are officially mandated and applied to service stations with occasional adjustments based on international fluctuations. Yeah. Oh, we missed a call. Caller, could you call us right back? I did not see that call. But go ahead and call back. The phone lines are open, guys. 572-3473. Yes. So gas prices in Anguilla, 19.08 EC per imperial gallon, 22.63 EC without exemptions. And that change took place on April 30th. Wow, that is a lot, guys. That is a lot. Good afternoon to you, caller. You are on the air.
Good afternoon, Angie. How are you?
A bit reeling from those gas prices, I can tell you.
You had a very long weekend.
Well,
how you enjoyed your jazz?
Jazz.
You
no,
were jazz into jazz?
no jazz for me. No jazz for me.
Okay. Well, I guess based on your response, you had a quiet weekend.
I did. I did.
Thanks. Sometimes you have to do that. Just rest and rejuvenate and
That's
come back
right. That's right.
better and stronger. Angie, I listened to you with regards to the cost of living and the impact of the of fuel on St. Lucia.
Yeah.
When you indicated that and you're right, it will affect a number of sectors. It will affect the minibus sector. It's inevitable.
It
It
is.
is a must. It will happen that Philip JP and the SFP administration or the labor, this government, and you corrected me on others by saying there's no such thing as Labour Party government.
Right. It is the government of St. Lucia, but the labor administration.
Administration.
Yeah. It's.
So I stand corrected, and I take your correction in good stead. So this Labour Party administration is inevitable. It has to happen. It will happen. That they will have to increase gas at the pump, and everything else will follow suit. Like you rightly said, minibus drivers will ask for an increase in bus fare.
Of course.
The price of the goods on the shelves at the supermarkets will increase naturally, automatic, because cost of production will go up. Electricity bills will go up.
That's
Inevitable, must happen, will happen.
Yeah.
And we're not prophets. We're not prophets of gloom and doom. We are just realists. We are just being realistic here on this platform. But the critical component that you miss is that it will affect adversely, negatively on our tourism industry. And I'll tell you why. Once the price of gas continues to rise or go up on the international scene, on the market, the international market, airlines will be affected because the planes need fuel to fly.
They do. That they do.
Yeah, and so they will have to increase their airfare. Naturally, we saw on the internet that Spirit Airlines closed shop.
Yes, I did read that.
There were some financial issues, had some serious financial issues, and they had to close shop.
And Spirit Airlines was just an American internal airline, just a national airline, not an international one, right?
Yes, but here I'm going with this, and you're right. Thanks for the correction again. You're right. But we rely on JetBlue.
Yeah, we do.
To try to bring our visitors and our nationals to St. Lucia to have vacation, to spend money. That's how the economy would grow. That's how people. This is what will generate economic activity. So JetBlue now, I'm hearing, is in some financial difficulties.
Wow.
So sooner from now, JetBlue will have to scale down its operations in St. Lucia, its flights,
or increase their airfare,
or increase the airfare, which naturally will affect people like me in the diaspora and many St. Lucians who want to come on a vacation, and not just St. Lucians, tourists alike. Virgin, all those airlifts from Canada and the UK, they too will have to increase their airfare. That will affect tourists.
Yeah.
A lot of visitors, persons in the diaspora, visitors alike, will have to weigh their options. Do they come to the Caribbean, which is more expensive for them in terms of airfare, airline tickets, and plus they have to take in consideration hotel accommodation and spending money. Is it cost effective for them to travel to have a vacation in the Caribbean?
And Colin, you just mentioned something that we missed altogether. You mentioned hotel accommodation. Do you know that judging by the not just the estimates, but judging by the how do you call it? Oh my God, the socioeconomic review for 2026.
Yeah, the economic and social review.
Right. We're seeing that hotel accommodation in St. Lucia has increased in price. So
exactly.
that also is making our destination less competitive.
Exactly. And you know why that is happening, Angie?
Talk to
That
me.
is happening because the hotels now, the occupancy is dwindling. The numbers are very low. Less people coming in. So they have to cover the operational costs. And
Right.
so they have to increase their rates
Right.
naturally. That is the
Right.
only way they can cover the costs. They have to pay the bills, the utilities, they
They
have to
have to
pay
pay.
their staff.
Yes.
So there's a lot. So to cover the costs, naturally they will increase their rates. And that is that you like you rightly said, will make us less competitive because tourists shop around, visitors shop around, they
They
go on
do.
the internet and they look for the most cheaper country to have a vacation. And if they see it's getting expensive to have a vacation in St. Lucia, they will not travel to St. Lucia on a vacation. So that will directly affect our tourism industry.
Yeah.
So you see the problem that we face?
Mm-hmm.
Yet you had a prime minister in Philippines who said 2 weeks ago, a week ago, that he did not bring down the price of gas at the time because he felt that St. Lucians will have extra money to do useless things.
Well, I wonder I wonder what his justification will be when the price of gas, when he has no choice but to raise the price of gas on families that are already struggling. What is he going to say to the general public? I would
You know what he's going to
love.
say? You know what, Angie, you know what Philip JPM will say? Mark my words. And you will say, I'm a Gade, I'm not a Gade.
Mm-hmm.
He will say, the government of the Labour Party, the Labour Party administration have been subsidizing gas and giving the people a reprieve.
Mm.
So because in light of the gas, the fuel prices on the market, the international market, it has gone up tremendously. He will have to increase the gas because the government no longer can subsidize anymore because the revenue stream it takes a lot of revenue to do that,
But
which is true.
but caller, this explanation does not align with what the prime minister just said. How is it that you subsidizing gas, but at the same time said that person Philip JPA will not say that. He will not come up to the public, to the Indonesian public, and say that. He will never make that statement. I mean, we credit this man with a lot of foolishness, but I just cannot see him doing that because after saying in the parliament that you did not bring down the price of gas so that people would not spend their money on unproductive things, you will come back and say that you were subsidizing gas. This man will incite a lynch mob. He will not do that.
He will say it, Angie. He has said it before that the Labour administration have been subsidizing gas, and we should be grateful for that. So he has said it before, and he will say when he has to increase the price of gas, which is inevitable, it's a must happen, that the government no longer can subsidize gas, and so we have to make a sacrifice. We have to change our lifestyle. We have to do less things. We have to do less partying. We have to be frugal with our money, and he will use all sorts of ridiculous reasons to justify why he has to increase the price of gas. Wait for it, Angie, it's coming. I said, you remember I told you that, and I'm not a guy. Wait for it, it's coming.
You're saying that, and I'm thinking about the 2.5% levy because he did come up with that. Make a sacrifice. We need the help with national security and health care.
Exactly.
It's only for 2 years, and we bought it, and everybody endeavored to make a sacrifice, and only to find out that
it was a con.
It was a con, and I have a clip later on where Tommy actually speaks about that. But yeah, go ahead.
So nothing the Prime Minister says should surprise you, Angie.
Yeah.
Just like we saw the incident that transpired at the opening of the Jazz Festival Thursday night. And I'm segueing a bit, and permit me, Angie. I don't want to dictate your show, your programming, but I had to segue a bit to show you that nothing this government does, this Labour Party government does, or administration should surprise you. How it is you could have a jazz festival, an opening of a national event,
Right.
which, by the way, as all of us know, is funded by the taxpayer. Our taxes fund those festivals, which brings in revenue to the country by X, Y, and Z. How it is at that event you can play a Labour Party political campaign song? How that can happen, Angie?
Well,
You have a
it did
jazz
happen.
festival.
It did happen because I heard several individuals come out on social media and condemning it. So it did happen.
It happened. But I'm saying why it happened. And the DJ is saying at the event it was a special request from a higher authority. Who is that higher authority?
Well, the highest authority in the land is the Prime Minister.
Exactly. So you have a Labour Party campaign song being played at a jazz festival, which is funded by our tax money, which is supposed to be, by the way, a national event. There should not be any political color, whether red, blue, purple, green. So you see, nothing, we cannot trust nothing that this government says, and we cannot trust nothing that this government does. Because this is the same Prime Minister who said we have to unite as a country, we have to work together, we have to unite. How could you unite a country when you do things like that?
Yeah.
That's not uniting, that's dividing a country.
You're correct.
I'm tying this in the context of the trustworthiness of what the Prime Minister says and does.
Yeah.
In this situation with the bus, I am telling you, Angie, he will come and say, Philip Pierre will come and tell the population, the country, that over the years, his government have been subsidizing gas to give the people a reprieve. That's what he will say. That will be his sales speech this time. But because of the war, and it's inevitable, and he didn't create any war, St. Lucia is not in any war, and he didn't create the war, but the war is there, so we have to make a sacrifice, we have to eat what we grow and grow what we eat, and we have to change our lifestyle.
And harvest rainwater. By the way, there's been no rain, caller. There's been no rain for the past couple of days. And
some areas in St. Lucia have been without pipe-borne water for over 6 days.
Yep.
So what rainwater can they harvest when rain is not raining?
And Wasco put out an advisory, just not to cut you short, but Wasco put out an advisory saying that there is an issue with the raw water. There is an issue with the pipeline at the John Compton Dam, which is interrupting the flow of raw water to the Feebles Treatment Center, and that's why there is no water to distribute from Millet to Cap Estate. That is almost through half of the island, the northern half of the island. So just imagine that.
Angie, you buy that explanation from Wasco?
Well, that's what they said. I cannot say what they didn't say. I can only repeat what they said. That is what they said. I questioned a number of the workers who looked at me as if I was speaking Greek, but maybe they are not in the know.
Wasco, and I'm not segueing, but I'm just putting that into context. Wasco, period, needs a managerial overhaul. Case closed.
Yeah.
That is unacceptable that in 2026, any part of the country in St. Lucia should be without pipe-borne water, potable water for over 6 days. That is unacceptable.
Yeah.
So I don't buy that argument. I don't buy that explanation from Wasco. That is just pure incompetence and failure.
Right.
So water rates will increase. As we're talking about water rates will increase because of the, as you said, Lucy and Wasco depends on the gas fuel to pump the water. So
actually, they depend on electricity.
So water rates will increase. Electricity will increase. Inevitable.
No doubt.
Cable will increase. Every single thing will increase. And you see what's going to happen? The private sector now will have to lay off people. You know why? God forbid. And before they accuse us of being enemy of the state and prophets of gloom and doom, we are just putting it into context so that the listeners and the viewers can understand the trouble that we are in as a country called St. Lucia. So the private sector will have to start laying off people. Why? Because they're not making the revenue, the money to cover the operational costs. So they will have to lay off people. The only sector that will absorb people in the workforce is the public service, the government, because they do not want, if there any government that attempts to lay off public servants, that government will fall the next day. So they will not do that. So you know what they will do? They will go back to the parliament and borrow more money to pay public servants.
But caller, that's compounding the problem, because if the government cannot employ everybody, they cannot. Public servants are paid from the public purse. They're paid from taxes. You understand? They're not paid from. They're paid from taxes.
But Angie, we have been saying that for years. A lot of persons have been lamenting and saying that for years, that our public service is too heavy. Yet still we see this SLP administration bringing more people into the public service. How many persons were in the media before 2021? Where are they now? All of them, most of them, at least half of them, you find when you look for them, they're in the public service doing PR for the government.
That's true.
At whose expense?
Yeah, you're correct there.
So who's paying for that? The taxpayer.
Yeah.
The private sector, who pay corporate tax and all those taxes. And when the private sector, the businesses, cannot afford to pay their staff because of the operational costs, the expenses have increased, they will be forced to lay off people. So you see, more and more poverty, unemployment will go up, the cost of living will go up, it's going to be harder on people. When I look at this whole situation, Angie, it's just pure sadness. It is just a country that I see is on the decline, St. Lucia that is, and the only way we can change our fortunes is if we move in a different political direction. Other than that, we are in serious trouble as a country. And I want to make a disclaimer here. We are not prophets of gloom and doom. We are not wishing bad on the country. We are simply putting it plainly in layman's terms to the listeners and the viewers so they can understand the trouble that St. Lucia is in right now. We do not produce anything. We do not export anything. We import more than we export. We do not have no thriving industry apart from the tourism industry. And I told you, I gave you examples. What will happen if this trend continues with the fuel on the international market? Airlines will have to increase the airfare. Less people will want to travel to St. Lucia. The tourism industry will be affected. The vendors by the road making a little hustle will be affected because nobody coming into the country to buy from them. The hoteliers will get affected because the occupancy will be very low and they will have to put people on rotation or even lay off. Right. So it is just a trying time for St. Lucia. Yeah. And I do not know, sadly, how or where or when we will get out of that situation. All I'm saying to St. Lucia is I am just putting it out there to you, St. Lucia, that our country is in serious trouble and we just have to hope and pray something turns for the better. But as we speak now, Angie, sadly, it's not looking good. Have a blessed day.
Thank you for that, caller. Well, the truth is the truth, because as I said, and as the caller said, we depend largely on the tourism industry, an industry that we do not control. Our cruise tourism has already taken a serious dip because, of course, it is more expensive to come to St. Lucia. Our head tax has doubled. Okay? Doubled. And you see less cruise ships in the harbor. You see less tourists actually disembarking the boat to come and spend money at the arcade, money in the city. It's just on a decline. Now, could you imagine if the cruise ships their operating cost increases, and I'm pretty sure their operating costs have already increased because the price of fuel has increased. What does that say for us? Somebody says, Angie, the gas price in America will be going up $5 and the people are already complaining. Another says, by the way, talking about the potato seeds, do you know if the Jack has an over the seeds to the Madam of Agriculture? And if so, has she give it to the farmers and by now we should have something coming out of it? Or is it something that Jack has just trying on the people? Actually, I did hear from one of my sources that the potato shoots, not seeds. I guess they were unable to source the seeds, but they were able to source shoots for the farmers, and these shoots have already been distributed. So yeah, people are getting their seeds. Somebody else, well, not seeds, sorry, shoots. Somebody says, I'm back. Another says, Bernadette, so you are now black. Somebody says, caller, what you said is so true. Another says, Angie, that's what jazz has come to. What a shame, shaking my head. Well, I did not attend for the first time. Well, actually, it's the second time. I chose not to attend the opening of jazz. Usually I go to every show except Pure Jazz because I do love music and I do love the jazz festival. You meet so many people, you get to touch base with foreign media and see how they do things and make important connections. And you get to have once in a lifetime interviews with these mega artists. I got to meet so many artists that I love, Sinach, Beanie Man, Kess, several of the new up-and-coming artists. And it's a wonderful experience to see St. Lucian talent on display, although I have not been very happy with the way some of our St. Lucian headliners have been treated. Ricky T, for one, I think for the first two jazz festivals really got the short end of the stick. And some other people are being thrust into the limelight, but that's for a different show. And for this year, for the second time, I chose not to attend the opening of jazz, mainly because I just wasn't feeling it. But then I heard so many people come out on social media and condemn this behavior. One person said that the DJ actually said that, well, not one person, because you just heard the caller say it, said that she had one lady who normally, well, I guess she's a social media influencer. She said that she was very appalled because the DJ said it was a special request from a higher authority. And she said the highest authority was the Prime Minister. And she said, you guys just don't know when to stop. And I mean, she was very upset. She's like, is that the place? She says, you're playing, say, Flabo or Rara, but the Flabos are there in the crowd spending their money. Jazz is not only for one set of people, it's for everybody. And there were not only one set of people, there were people who support both parties in the crowd, and she felt it was very disrespectful. I heard another individual say that Philip J. Pierre should be the campaign manager, not the Prime Minister, because all he does is campaign. And saying, is this appropriate? I mean, several individuals. I did see one hack come out and say, oh, the Flubbles were not complaining, they were dancing as well, and responding to somebody on Facebook saying that jazz should be boycotted because of this heinous behavior. Several individuals have come out in social media and have condemned it, and I was like, oh my God, Thank God I wasn't in the crowd. That was really distasteful. And this is not me speaking. This is from what I've been reading on social media, people who support the Labour Party as well as people who support the UWB have come out in condemnation of this kind of behavior. According to them, politics is over and jazz is a national event, and it is very disrespectful and distasteful for the Prime Minister to do something. And even if the Prime Minister is not the one who made the request, he will take, sadly, the blame will fall on his shoulders because one, it was his constituency. Two, the DJ said a higher authority. Now, when you say from the higher authority, the Prime Minister automatically is the highest authority in the land. Sorry, but if you take a managerial position, when things go south, the blame is all yours. Somebody here is saying, Ian Cauldron, sorry, we produce racism, no jobs, poor healthcare, poor infrastructure, high crime, and high cost of living through the governance of our present SLP regime, all done under the ruling of PJP. This is what St. Lucians voted for. Oh, well, can't argue with that logic because that is the situation that we have been placed in. Another person is saying, for me alone, they can have jazz by the road where I live. I will not attend. Not interested. People feel differently about different things. So, and quite honestly, I'm tired of the jazz festival. I'm going to be honest with you. I think I overdosed on jazz the first couple of times that they brought it in. So really now, if there's one artist that I want to see, like last year, I really did not want to attend the festival. I wanted to see Beenie Man because I've always wanted to see Beenie Man. Been a fan of his since the 90s. So I had to attend that show. And not only did I get accreditation, but I even won a ticket from Digicel, and I was so happy. So I got to attend this show, and it was great. I did attend Kingdom Night and Caribbean Fusion and just the tail end of the festival, which I think I might do the same this year. But because I do want to see Dexter Daps, and I would love to see Billy Ocean. As a child growing up, my dad used to play Billy Ocean for my mom all the time. You know, that was their love language. So, you know, I grew up hearing his voice in the house, and it would be nice to see him again. But really, the jazz festival, you've gone to one, you've seen them all. Which I probably shouldn't be saying, because there might be people. I'm not discouraging anyone to go to the jazz festival. I love the jazz festival. I love music. I love the diversity it brings. I love the fact that you get to see I saw Beres Hammond perform right here in St. Lucia, John Legend, CeCe Winans. It's a wonderful, wonderful experience. You rub shoulders. I met Kim Fields in the crowd. An actress. I met this other guy who plays who is on a sitcom, a very popular sitcom, BT sitcom right now. Can't remember his name, Curtis something, but he was right there, in the crowd among everyone, just enjoying himself. So it is a great experience, so don't knock it till you try it, guys. But as much as the jazz festival is a wonderful opportunity, how many people can afford tickets? How many people have the disposable income to afford tickets? How many people have the disposable? And that's another thing. The Prime Minister is saying the benefits, the macro benefits, meaning the money that we would save from a decrease in the price of fuel would have gone to unproductive things. But he forgets that there's a jazz festival coming up. Lance Gloss, thank you for that name. That's the guy I saw standing right next to me. And I was wondering, wait, this guy looks familiar, but what is he doing here? This is the media booth. And there he was, So, I mean, so many of these stars, Chloe Bailey, all of them, and they're just walking around, milling about, saying hi to everyone. Because in St. Lucia, we don't make a fuss about celebrities. And these people come here, and it's like they're one of the crowd, I would have loved it if Taraji did not mispronounce the word soufre when she visited St. Lucia. But it's just a wonderful, wonderful place. It's a wonderful feeling to be among all of these individuals, to just enjoy good music. But I mean, speaking to the Jazz Festival and the cost of living, cost of living crisis, if the Prime Minister was forward thinking, that a jazz festival is coming up, why not decrease the cost of fuel? Let people save up money so they can buy tickets to go to the jazz festival, so they can spend money on food. I heard one of the same persons who were condemning the Prime Minister for playing that song during the festival, talking about how expensive the food and drinks were at the festival. And she quoted some prices, from beers to liquor, even to food, on how expensive the food was. And she said next year she is going to try to see if she can secure a vending booth, because it seems that the people are out to be one day millionaires. They want to make all the money one time. But you have to ask yourself, how much money are they paying for to be able to sell, to vend at the festival? That would have been the ideal time, Mr. Prime Minister, to lower the price of gas so that people can have money to jump carnival. People can have money to attend the jazz festival. I heard the Minister of Investment saying, or the Minister of Tourism saying, that the festival people, he was being asked about free tickets. What did he say? He said, there's no way you can have a jazz festival without giving out free tickets. But interestingly, he didn't say how many free tickets. He said, you have to give each of the opposition ministers and each of the ministers some tickets, and so on and so forth. He said it. He said there's no way that we can have this festival without giving out complimentary tickets. And ever since the jazz festival has come back, we have not seen one audit that tells us how much money was spent to put on the festival, how much we made in ticket sales, how much we made in transportation. Because the way it's done, when you do the park and ride, you buy a ticket, which is highway robbery, by the way, because you pay $5. $5 from Rodney Bay to Pigeon Point, right? $5. $5 to go, $5 to come back. So you have to spend $10 on tickets, and you can't buy one ticket. You have to buy two. So you spend $10 on tickets. You get the bus next to the Rodney Bay Marina. They drop you off at the Pigeon Island landmark. You come back. You $5 each way. And Don't tell me that the minister, that the tourism authority, they are the ones collecting those tickets, cannot say how much money was made in park and ride ticket sales. Everybody going to the festival, except those who decide to use the water taxi service, they pay for the park and ride. You have no choice. Everybody who's going to the festival has to have a ticket. Either you have the ticket online, or you buy your ticket physically at the thing. So don't tell me, even if you cannot tell me how many people even if you cannot tell me how many people stayed at the various resorts or the various bed and breakfasts or whatever what have you, or Airbnbs, even if you cannot tell me how much money the vendors made, even if you cannot tell me how much money was gleaned from other activities, but you can tell us how much money was made in transportation to and from the festival, and you can tell us how much money was made in ticket sales. But every time we've asked for an explanation as to how much we profited from the festival, we're always told, oh, you cannot measure that, or it's a marketing tool, and the excuses just keep piling up. So, I mean, I believe that if the jazz festival was profitable, I mean, it's a good lime, but if it was profitable, this government, I believe, would be touting this. They talk about the numbers, the people. Let me tell you, when I go to jazz, I don't go to jazz with money. Okay? I don't spend money at jazz. The food is too expensive. The drinks are too expensive. If I meet a friend and they offer me a drink, fine. And I'm not a freeloader. I'm just saying I can't afford it. And somebody told me once, I was in Castries and somebody offered me their services, some guy vending, and I said, your product is too expensive, and this person proceeded to insult me and say, oh, that means you don't value yourself, which I find was utterly ridiculous, because yes, I do value myself by not living above my means, but buying food and drinks at the jazz festival, for me, can't afford it. So I eat after. You know, it is what it is. People come, they enjoy the food, they enjoy the music, they enjoy the ambience, they meet friends, they have fun. But then, I mean, people cannot afford it, and it's just like Carnival. Pretty soon, say locals will not be able to afford Carnival costumes. Now, all of these things the Prime Minister should have thought of when he opened his mouth and said that the macro effects of reducing the price of gas would have caused an increase in consumptions that would have gone maybe to things that were not productive. So is he saying that putting on the jazz festival is not productive? Is he saying putting on Carnival is not productive? The Prime Minister needs to be careful about the things he says and how he says it, because people are listening. People are listening. Somebody's saying to me, Angie, do you know where the UWP individuals can get complimentary jazz tickets as the SLP people received? Please let us know. Don't keep the information for yourself. A joke. I wish I knew. I would tell you. But according to the Minister of Investment, each of the ministers were given complimentary tickets. So I'm guessing It's only the SLPs because what? 16-1. Do you honestly believe that they gave the leader of the opposition tickets? I don't know. I can't say. I don't know. Maybe I should ask. I don't know. Somebody says, Angie, everybody on the field had a free ticket. Don't say that. Somebody says, Ted, these are not for flubbos. Somebody else says, people need to boycott that so-called thing called jazz because it has been tainted with politics. When you deal with the devil, you cannot think properly because Satan controls everything you do. I do believe that what the Prime Minister did was quite distasteful, and I really wish he would apologize to the people. I know at Grocery Friday night, the DJ, I think, played some songs that the people did not like. He played some campaign songs, and he was asked to stop, and I think he has been boycotted or cut from the roster. So people take these things very seriously, and it's very offensive. We'll take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we will go back to the House to hear how Tommy dissects the 2.5% health and security levy. We'll be right back.
You already know the power of Licks products on your clothes and household. You licked your whites and colored clothes, leaving them fresh and scented. You licked your dishes and left your hands protected with vitamin E. You licked your floors, even licked your toilet. Now we expand and bring you 3 new scents in our fabric softener: Balmy Sunshine, Summer Sunshine, and Thousand Flowers. And licks those stains off of colored clothes with Licks Curler Safe Bleach. Licks went even further with Bondicam body soap bars in deodorant and antibacterial. So Licks tiredness and bacteria out and refresh your tired body. Your products giving you licks? Then choose Licks from Today Distribution Inc. Available at all leading supermarkets.
Seabreeze Adventures would like to announce its official water taxi service for St. Lucia Jazz 2026. Pickup can be arranged from either Castries or Rodney Bay to the Pigeon Island National Landmark on show days. Transportation from Rodney Bay costs $10 US or $25 EC one way or $20 US or $50 EC return trip, and can be accessed at Lavi, Hamley Suites, or at the Rodney Bay Marina. Transportation from Castries cost $20 US or $50 EC one way or $40 US or $100 EC a round trip. Pickup points in the city are at La Place Carénage or at Point Seraphine. Customers wishing to take advantage of this service can book in advance by contacting Captain Warren at telephone number 1758-713-3196. Pickup starts at 10 a.m. until shows end. Seabreeze Adventures, not just a tour, but an adventure.
And there you have it, folks. If you want to enjoy a water taxi to the Jazz Festival, I know I'm getting a lot of flack on here, don't be shy. Call up Seabreeze Adventures or show up. Get your water taxi, bypass all of the the traffic. Somebody's asking me here, can't these ministers afford, Angie? Well, I mean, with the rising cost of fuel and all of these things that come with it, I guess even the ministers are feeling the pinch. Do you honestly expect these ministers to dish out money out of pocket to attend the Jazz Festival? I don't. They're people of high stature. Whether or not they can afford is irrelevant. You know, it is what it is. Somebody says, Angie, remember that 110 million plus the SLP party made available and distributed during the last election without the opposition knowing? Well, guys, that $110 million, that would have done wonders right now in subsidies for the entire country with this potential, well, not potential, I can't say potential because it's not like there's a possibility, inevitable hike in the price of fuel, and with it a hike in the cost of living and everything else, that would have done wonders right now. We need that money right now. But I guess the SLP needed that money more. And I don't want to speak too much on this issue because I want to wait for the explanation, because like the leader of the opposition said when he was interviewed on this show last week, he will be writing to the director of finance to find out the ins and outs of this stimulus package, he calls it. So before we speak on this matter, I would prefer if we reserve judgment for the explanation from the director of finance. I think that's fair. Of course, we have to stick to the precepts of accountability, transparency, truth, and integrity here on Hard Talk. And I really want to hear what the director of finance has to say, so then we can decipher for ourselves whether this stimulus package was, how it was done, who benefited, why it was done, and so on and so forth. Now, let's go back to the House of Parliament. The Senate. That would be the upper house. Because Senator Tommy Descott was just getting warmed up when he spoke about the cost of fuel. He had several things to say about the 2.5 health and security levy. So let us take a listen. Here is Tommy Descott.
President, the government has reported to this honorable house on several occasions that it has run fiscal surpluses. That may be so. But let's be clear, primary surpluses are not a novelty in St. Lucia. And they are certainly not the achievement reserved for only one administration. In fact, the highest primary surplus recorded in recent history was recorded in the fiscal year 2018-19, when the UW government posted a primary surplus of $108 million, equivalent to 1.9% of GDP. See it on page 123 of the Economic and Social Review. Table 44 of the appendix. Go there, please. Madam President, the government introduced a health and security levy, which resulted in revenue of $97.2 million between 2023 and 2025. And it is projecting another $53.2 million in this fiscal year. And of course, it's going to run surpluses. And if it didn't run surpluses, it would be rather surprising. The government collected $68.2 million in 2023, $80.8 million in 2024, and $100.8 million in 2025 in excise tax on fuel only. So if it does not have a surplus, I don't know. It has made a...
Let's listen to that again. The excise taxes on fuel have been rising steadily. Let's hear this again. Let's listen again to what Tommy is saying.
Billions from the impact of inflation. The same cannot be said about the St. Lucia Labour Party. Once again, it has failed on fuel pricing in this country. Madam President, the government has reported to this honorable house on several occasions that it has run fiscal surpluses. That may be so. But let's be clear, primary surpluses are not a novelty in St. Lucia. And they are certainly not the achievement reserved for only one administration. In fact, the highest primary surplus recorded in recent history was recorded in the fiscal year 2018-19 when the UW government posted a primary surplus of $108 million, equivalent to 1.9% of GDP. See it on page 123 of the Economic and Social Review. Table 44 of the appendix. Go there, please. Madam President, the government introduced a health and security levy, which resulted in revenue of $97.2 million between 2023 and 2025. And it is projecting another $53.2 million in this fiscal year. And of course it's going to run surpluses. And if it didn't run surpluses, it would be rather surprising. The government collected $68.2 million in 2023, $80.8 million in 2024, and $100.8 million in 2025 in excise tax on fuel only. So if it does not have a surplus, I don't know. It has made a big hullabaloo about outstanding payables. Historically, payables is $40 million. Historically, go and read the Economic and Social Review, the idea of no new taxes. Madam President, one of the major taglines of this budget was no new taxes. But I submit to this House in an environment where the government is getting a windfall in revenue due to higher cost of imported goods. No caring government ought to remotely consider introducing new taxes. In fact, opposite is needed at this time. What is required is real immediate relief for households and businesses. Relief delivered through strategic reduction of key border and international trade taxes so that the price of goods is lowered at the point where inflation is imported. The slogan, no new taxes, must be seen for what it is, Madam President. A convenient line, not a program of relief. For the Minister of Finance has said it clear that the reduction or a removal of existing burdens such as health and security is not an option in this country. In the words of a Jamaican YouTuber and comedian, the Prime Minister is saying, and I say, that never happen. That will never happen. We will never see a Labour government reducing taxes in our country. Madam President, much has been said about the health and security levy. Whether it was sold to the country as a measure for 2 years, or whether it was intended to become a permanent measure, Madam President, I put this question to the Honorable House, which is simple. Were all the proceeds of the levy, in fact, allocated to health and security? If the answer is no, then this is not a narrow levy at all. It is a broad-based tax, no different from, in substance, from a VAT. And if that is so, let us call it what it is. Perhaps, probably, the country is carrying two VAT rates. A 12.5% VAT, an over 12.5% VAT, and a covert 2.5% VAT disguised as a health and security levy. Madam President, even if no explicit new taxes announced today, the bill does not disappear. It is merely deferred. And it is our children, the children that we are asking to make more of. And our children's children who will pay this borrowing through higher taxes tomorrow. So don't believe we have expected. And that's why they came at 618 million public debt, Madam President. Madam President, I now turn attention to the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And that is solutions that...
So your time is up to conclude the presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I will allow my colleagues to... But in closing, Madam President, let me say, in closing, the budget asks the country to be satisfied with management when what is required is transformation. It asks us to accept modest gains in the midst of mounting structural challenges, to celebrate surpluses while debt rises, and to find comfort in slogans where there is an absence of strategy. But the people of St. Lucia deserve more than adjustment at the margins. They deserve a clear vision, Madam President, a coherent plan, and the courage to confront the deep structural constraints that hold this economy back. We can continue along a path of low growth, high vulnerability, and deferred opportunity. And we can choose a path of productivity, investment, and inclusive prosperity. That choice, Madam President, is not beyond us, but it requires leadership, honesty, and resolve. And it is because that this budget does not rise to meet that moment that I, Senator Tommy Descott, cannot support it. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Well, I would have loved for Tommy to address that 800-pound gorilla, which I believe would have been our debt to GDP. But unfortunately, he ran out of time. But you get the gist of what he is saying, though, that the health and security levy, instead of becoming a special tax geared at helping the cause of health and national security in St. Lucia, it has become, like Tommy describes it, a covert VAT. Meaning that it's not going anywhere, guys. And I've always been very skeptical about the way the health and security levy was being applied. I mean, do you realize that the health and security actually taxes the VAT? It's a compounded tax which is applied to the cost of goods after the VAT has been applied. That's madness. That's highway robbery. That is the government generating inflation. And with the high cost of fuel, keeping it where it was when fuel costs on the global market were decreasing, that is the government generating inflation. I think Guy Joseph called it homegrown inflation. We have to call it what it is. So I pose the question to the viewers again. What do you think is going to happen? When, and I don't say if, I say when, the cost of fuel at the pump rises. If I saw a way on end to this Iran war in the near future, I would probably take a chance and see when or if, I would probably take a chance and see if, but we've seen it. This war doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. Donald Trump and Netanyahu, they don't seem to want to end this war until all of their terms are met. How are we to cope when this causes the price of fuel to hike and St. Lucians will have no choice but to face fuel at the pump that will rise to, the highest we've seen was $17.95, but we have no guarantee that that is the cost that it would go up to. And when it does rise, depending on how high it goes, you expect the cost of bread, the cost of bus fare, the cost of everything else to go up in its wake. Can St. Lucia deal with this? Can we sustain this? Because if there's one thing that the cost of fuel will not bring up, is people's take-home pay. How are St. Lucian families to cope? And from what I've seen of this budget, and I have to be honest, I have not sat down and dissected this budget in its entirety, but from what I've seen so far, there is no cushion for the St. Lucian family. There is no cushion for St. Lucian workers. There is no cushion even for the private sector. Cost of production will go up. Cost of staying in business will go up. Supply chain issues will erupt. Next thing you know, businesses will be closing down one by one or downsizing one by one. How is the business sector or the Chamber of Commerce to respond to this kind of external shock? How are we to cope? You know, somebody is jumping in on the WhatsApp platform. Person says here, good afternoon, Angie. Government ministers don't buy gas. They use the gas vouchers from their ministries allocated to them. They all go and buy gas at Jamari. They're not feeling any pinch. It's the taxpayers who feel it. And if they're not buying gas, you certainly don't expect them to buy jazz tickets. Somebody says here, that's why PJP refuses to remove the 2.5% levy. As he said, it was there for 2 years because they are collecting surplus from it. We tell you, they are milking the bull with that one. Somebody gave me a joke recently and said that former Minister Cicely said in the House that the former UWP, I think it was the John Compton administration, was milking the bull. I believe that right now the 2.5% health and security levy is in fact milking the bull in St. Lucia and turning bread into stone. Somebody says you should go into, somebody said that one of the persons on here should go into politics. The response, thanks and no thanks for politics. It is too dirty. Somebody says, Angie, I'm happy in one way that UWP is in opposition because it gives the opposition senators like Descat and Titus to really debate what's happening with the economy in the country. Well, yeah, it does give them an opportunity to debate it, to talk about it. But what really can they do? They're outnumbered 3-4. You must remember that we have 3 opposition senators in the upper house, 4 government senators, and 2 independent senators. So the opposition is outweighed and outnumbered in every aspect of the government. And we have the lone voice of the leader of the opposition in the House. But when he speaks, they all listen. Guys, this is 4:02 p.m. Almost time for us to leave, but the phone lines are open and I really want to hear from you. What do you think? How do you think St. Lucians are going to cope when the price of gas increases, as it inevitably will? Anguilla has taken it to above $19. We don't know what's going on as yet in the other Caribbean islands. But St. Lucia cannot be far behind. We're already at $16. We've seen the price of gas go up as high as $17.95. I don't know. I cannot tell you if when if the price will increase to $17.95 or if it will go higher. But judging from our recent history, price of fuel in St. Lucia has always been the highest in the Eastern Caribbean. Well, actually, let me be clear. It's been the highest ever since Philip J. Pierre taken office. So, judging by that piece of history, I wouldn't be surprised if the price of fuel in St. Lucia approaches $20 or maybe more, surpasses that when the price goes up. But Lord have mercy, what are we to do? Now, guys, don't forget today is Monday, so right after full disclosure, right after Hard Talk this afternoon, we do have full disclosure with Mr. Foster Chico. So be sure to stick around for that. I'm sure Mr. Chico will have many interesting points to bring up when it comes to what has been going on over the weekend. We had a slew of crimes, choppings, accidents. I even think we had a murder or two. And of course, we are going to deal with these situations. So stick around. Right after Hard Talk, full disclosure is coming on at 5 o'clock. We still have a few minutes. We're going to go up till 4:30 today. But I want to hear from you. Do you believe that St. Lucian households can absorb the shock of a hike in fuel prices? I would imagine that many St. Lucian families are already on the brink, already living. Oh, it's cold in here, guys. And the cold makes me sleepy. But I would imagine that several families in St. Lucia have tightened their belts as tight as it can go. They've cut out so many things and are living on bare necessities. When the price of fuel increases, what are these same families to do? Because the only thing the price of fuel will not increase, the cost of fuel will not increase people's salaries. How are we to cope? Somebody says, as they accepted the 2.5% levy without saying anything. Well, I guess this person is saying this is how persons are going to cope with the levy, with the hike in gas prices without saying anything. But I don't think so. I think Philip J. Pierre would, that statement that he made. Oh, we have a caller on the line. Good afternoon to you, caller. You are on the air.
Good afternoon, Angie. I know I called earlier, but something just came to mind. Hard times, like they would say, like any economist who's worth his or her salt would say, hard times necessitate austerity measures. So it would be very interesting to know or to find out whether ministers of government will take a salary cut.
Really, caller? You think? Really? You honestly think that the ministers of government will take a... When have we ever heard this happening in the Parliament of St. Lucia?
It will be interesting to know, because listen, let me say this. Hard times, I'll repeat that again for the benefit, so just to strengthen my point. Hard times necessitate austerity measures. So if our country is going through tough economic times, you will expect sacrifices have to be made. And And the sacrifices you'd expect to be you should get from, should expect from, is from your leaders, your government officials. Now, once the price of gas or fuel goes up, everything goes up, like we said. Everything goes up. Cost of living will go up. There's a high possibility of layoffs. Economic activity will go. There will be a downturn.
Yeah.
In economic activity, toward the revenue of the country the revenue stream of the country will be less, will shrink. So government will not be able to meet its obligations, such as provide building roads, and all these things will have to factor in. So a huge amount of sacrifice. Because let me tell you something, Angie, I'm predicting that you will hear from our government that we have to make as a people.
We have to
will
make a
have to make
sacrifice.
sacrifices.
You think that will fly this time? You think that will fly?
Well, if a government can play a political song, a campaign song at a national event on Thursday night, jazz, anything can fly in St. Lucia. And there are other examples, which I don't want to, which I think I don't want to segue too much from your program, which we'll not get into today. So that's for another show. But I want to find out, I want to know, it will be very interesting to know and to find out whether Philip JP will say, okay, because of the fact that less tourists coming into the country, because of airline tickets, the airline industry decide, okay, the operational cost is too much, so they have to increase the airline tickets, and less persons will want to come to St. Lucia in terms of vacation, what have you. And the economic crunch is squeezing the country.
Right.
Will they take a salary cut?
Well, I think I will speak for a lot of people who will not believe that will happen, who thinks that is similar to seeing the cow jumping over the moon in broad daylight. That's important. I don't, it can happen, but I don't see it happening, caller. I don't see it happening,
to
be honest.
It's not going to happen, Angie.
I don't see it happening.
I don't see, I agree, I'm agreeing with you. It's just a thought that came to mind, while you were talking there.
Yeah.
And I just said, let me just profit the opportunity to call a second time, just to bring that out to the public. Because all the largesse that we see, all the freeness, all the offloading of political hacks, including those in the media, you see they were offloaded at the public at the expense of the taxpayer in the government departments. That largesse has to continue at what cost, but it has to continue.
That's true.
Because I scratch your back, you have to scratch mine,
That's
as
right.
they would say.
That's right.
So the largesse will continue. At whose expense? The country cannot afford it. Already we have, like I said, a heavy public service, a heavy government department. St. Lucia cannot afford that heavy government department. I think governments over the years have tried to avoid tackling that issue again, like I said earlier, because of the political ramifications or consequences that may come with it. But it's a conversation as a country and as a people we must have. Can we afford that public service that we have right now? The answer to that, I'm not an economist, I don't work in the Ministry of Finance, but from layman, looking at it from the outside as a layman, I don't think we can afford it as a country. So, with all these hard times coming in, where people cannot even afford to buy basic goods, grocery at the supermarket, where bus fares will go up, where electricity will go up, water will go up, everything will go up in terms of price. Would the government of a Philip GPS say, listen here, we are taking the lead. We want you to make a sacrifice. You have to change your lifestyle, but we're also changing ours by taking a salary cut.
I doubt.
That is what, and I doubt it.
Thank you so much for that, caller. We have somebody desperately trying to get the line. Thank you so much. Yeah. We lost that call, but I'm sure the caller will call back soon. I don't see it. I mean, in a perfect world, you would want the government to show that they care and show that they're willing to lead by example. Oh, good afternoon to you, caller. You are on the air. Hello.
Good afternoon, Angie.
Hi, good afternoon, caller.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. What about you?
Not so bad, my love. I'm just going to answer the last caller.
Mm-hmm.
Remember during the COVID period,
Mm-hmm.
when the COVID came in, the government of St. Lucia told us that it went to 60% of our revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yes, I do.
This same administration, when they were in opposition with Philip Joseph Pierre as their leader, St. Lucians, didn't you all remember that those people brought the government to court and they were asking for the monies that they owed them to pay them the money? You all remember that? So what cut?
Wow.
What cut you all expecting from them? You all didn't remember that? All of them came together and they asked, I think it was a back pay that the government owed them, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked the government for their money. They were ready to bring the government to court when they knew what COVID did to the country.
Mm-hmm.
COVID took away 60% of the country's revenue. The money from the coffers. And imagine, COVID was in 2019?
2019
Yes,
to
it's COVID-19,
2021,
yes. Yeah, COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The government came into power in 2016. Mm-hmm. Kenny Anthony told us in 2015 something happened. He told us clearly, he just didn't come out with the words and say the country has no money.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
He said that the financial institution, they sent him to fix his financial house in order.
Mm-hmm.
Because he couldn't make up the revenue to pay the country's debt.
Right.
That means the coffers, the country had no money.
Mm-hmm.
And those same wicked, poor labor politicians, I put them, that doesn't know money, power hungry for money, don't care about the country, not the people, but all they care about is themselves and making crooked deals and selling our country to foreigners, land, everything, giving away. They don't care. I watch these people, and it's not me alone. If St. Lucians can remember, both the Labour supporters and the UWP supporters and those that didn't care and the independent ones, we stood there and we watched Philip Pierre, when he was in opposition, bringing forward a case to the then government of St. Lucia, which was the UWP administration, asking them to pay them their back pay or whatever they had for them. And it's now they're going to take a cut. Dream on, caller. Study what is happening in your country. Philip Pierre will not take a pay cut. Philip Pierre is all about the politics and protecting the Labour Party. He will do whatever it takes to keep Labour in power. The buck stopped with Philip Pierre. Philip Pierre is the one that have the country in disarray. Philip Pierre that have the country sinking into poverty. It is Philip Pierre. He knows everything about the bad deals, the corruption there. He knows about it, alleged corruption, whatever it is. It's Philip Joseph Pierre, the Prime Minister of St. Lucia. He knows everything that is happening there. And I just can't understand, why is it St. Lucians are allowing this man to bring down the country to its knees while they're entertaining him? He's enriching himself with the taxpayers' money. His pay, his salary, his gas is being paid for by the taxpayers' money, by the ones he calling, they are already saying, say, because it's not Labour supporters alone that is paying these people's salary. If it was Labour supporters only that were paying their salaries, they wouldn't run for politics. Because the money would not be enough.
True.
The monies would not be enough. The incentive that they are getting would not be enough. And I am telling the poor people of St. Lucia, it's time that they open their eyes to see what is happening in that country. Stop taking half a loaf from your politicians. and start demanding for better. Start demanding for better governance, where you have good policies that is being made for our children's future, so that the young children will not go gallivanting, stealing each other's phones. If the government put proper policies in place that could elevate our standard of living, Angie, proper policies to keep our people in check, where they don't have to go and beg people or steal to make life better for them, going to corruption. Let's do it like Singapore. Once our leaders are not crooked, once our leaders will not engage themselves in corruption, we can do it. And this is why all of them throw themselves at Alan Chasney, and they are attacking this man because he will not stand for the corruption. He refused to take the bribe. He refused to say, give me $2 million and I will support you. He will not go into that. And I am so proud of this gentleman for that. Sir, I am telling you, continue to believe in your truth. And somewhere down the line, God will open the eyes of these people. If they cannot do it by themselves, if they cannot stand up and go to the streets, if they cannot do it, a revelation will happen. It will happen. But it's only on God's timing.
Now, caller, I have a question. I have a question. Judging by what is happening in the global sphere, we have this ongoing war in Iran, and you know Iran is one of the largest oil producers in the world. Right. And you also know that traditionally, when the cost of fuel in St. Lucia, especially under this SLP administration, when it rises, it normally rises to the highest in the OECS. Do you think that St. Lucian families can sustain, say, the cost of fuel if it goes any higher?
Auntie, that's not a question to ask. It is at $16 there right now. 16 something, and we cannot survive.
Yeah.
So finance when this man put that to, if Antigua, we know that have a how do you call it? A minimum wage, a good minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if St. Lucians know that, but the minimum wage in Antigua is probably maybe by $14 to $15, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too sure. You can find out for yourself. I know that's what you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
If Antigua has a minimum wage that can sustain its people, because you don't hear Antiguans complaining. That is one Caribbean island you do not hear the people complaining.
I think actually the minimum wage is $11.50 per hour.
$11.50 per hour.
And they actually raised it from $9 an hour on the 1st of April 2026.
Exactly, because the man knew what was coming.
Right.
That is leaders that understand the plight of the people, not one that is playing politics with its people. You hear what I'm telling you?
Mm-hmm.
And if by now St. Lucians cannot see through Philippine and Labour, whenever that political party is in power, it's poverty that is eating the people. It's poverty that is creeping on the land. Mm-hmm. If we cannot see that as a people, and we stand up there, regardless is UWP or SLP, defending the atrocities of this Labour Party, especially this one there. Kenny did it worse. Then Peckham, Priwosoko. Just like that, you want to sink yourself in poverty for a political party?
And just to put things in perspective, Antigua and Barbuda, the price of gas is fixed at $14.50 per gallon, so it's capped at $14.50 per gallon.
To me, they raised it already.
As of March 2026. No, that would be Anguilla, not Antigua. Anguilla.
Oh, Anguilla. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, you see what I'm telling St. Lucians? St. Lucians need to wake up. St. Lucians, you cannot be paying taxes. And that is why I tell you I love Alan Chasney, the opposition leader. When he told the nation that the politicians are spending the monies of the country. They're doing it the wrong way. You cannot be collecting taxes from people and giving them little stipends for them to survive. You have to put things in place. Right. You have to try and raise the nose of the people from poverty. You have to do that. But what are we seeing? Whenever Labour Party is in power, it's poverty that is creeping. What are the statistics? What are the statistics to tell us where our country is at? Again, we cannot trust them. Because tomorrow they will come and say the unemployment rate is, like he said it. He said it. And we're not seeing that. We are not seeing that. That is just word of mouth. But solutions within your own heart, your conscience. You all know when you are walking the ground. You all know things are not happening in the country. You all know the country is in disarray. And you are doing wickedness to your own self. Just to say my party in power and yours out of power, say Labour, say Flabo. Let me tell you something. That's why I don't want to be. Again, I will tell you all that. I never had intentions of making myself a political football in St. Lucia, because once you open your mouth and you start speaking the truth, they label you as a political act, so people will not listen to what you have to say.
Yeah.
And that is wrong. That is wrong. I want to see St. Lucia thrive, and we have never had a good leader in this country, because I have been observing the politics in St. Lucia. Mm-hmm. And this is what I have been observing from the day Sir John passed. We have not had a leader to challenge the affairs of this country for us until Alan Shastey pop up his head in the politics as leader, as prime minister. We saw change, we saw growth. And this is what we saw, the poverty rate. Statistics didn't lie then. I want solutions to understand that. As long as the poverty rate drop in your country is doing well. That means the standard of living, people's standard of living is being elevated. That is what you look for from your leaders. Not leaders that come in and tell you, put division in the country, telling you lose. Why are you telling the people they lose? No health care, we dying, no medicine, and your whole cabinet of ministers can charter a flight on our money. On our monies, not on your monies, Philip Pierre. On our money. I will not support that. And that is why, again, I will tell you, I love Alan Shastey when he said we are doing it the wrong way. And I am telling St. Lucians again, if the OECS or whatever they call themselves CARICOM could have picked Mr. Shastey, the former Prime Minister of St. Lucia, to take the Caribbean out of COVID, to come out strong, so that the economies will not crash. What is wrong with St. Lucians? The politicians can understand that. The people of St. Lucia cannot understand that. What is wrong with you all? Again, doing wickedness to yourself? Why would I support a political party, NG, that is sending me to purchase books for my child to go to school? Over one that is telling me I am giving you an e-book and you don't have to spend $1,000+. Why would I support the one that is telling me go and buy the books, and the books watching me in my house there? It just staring at me. Children not using the books. The teachers tell you it's just notes they're giving the children and then take down the notes. Why would I put myself through that?
Yeah.
Why would I choose a government that is willing to give me proper health care with an insurance attached to it? That's what every first world country have. Over a government that is telling me go back in a dirty building, that up to now they're talking about commissioning it, they're taking 10 years to come. We don't have time for that. The world moving, it evolving. Do your work. Do what you're supposed to do. And I will never in my life support Labour Party. Never, because I have never seen growth under them. I have never seen the poor risen. I have never seen the poor people raise under a Labour Party government.
Mm-hmm.
Not even if they tell you, I give the caretakers job. What job? $1,200 see. Where is the what difference?
Breathe, caller, breathe.
I am breathing. But you see, when I see nonsense happening right before my eyes, and people are acting malicious, they are wicked, saying half a loaf is better than none. I want a whole loaf. The politicians have a loaf, 5 loaves eating.
That's right.
And you coming to me and you telling me half a loaf is better than one? We have a minister that said he couldn't take care of his kids.
Now he's asking people to have kids.
And you're asking people to have kids. Now you're a politician. Your children now going to private school. You hear me?
Yep.
And I cannot make the money for mine, or my neighbors cannot make the money for them to go to private school. And I will support that. I cannot support that. And that is why first world countries, they aspire. Because the people don't stand for the BS that is happening in our country. They don't stand for it. You see the nonsense Pierre did there in the opening of the jazz? He and he left, say from say this, that. Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister on a stage, you give your little remarks, okay? As soon as you leave, you ain't leave on the stage yet. People say they get thing from the higher authority to come and play that. Angie, if that had happened in Barbados or Martinique, Pierre and them, their body would have been somewhere. If either they had been out of office or something, a statement would have been out already for the Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And we tolerating that in our country? No man. I really fought St. Lucia's. I gave St. Lucia's the benefit of a doubt. You see now, is wickedness that is happening in this country. And they are so blind that they are putting their own self in poverty.
Yeah.
Because of their wickedness. But Tato, you kind way. Have a good day, my love.
Thank you for that, caller. Well, guys, just so you know, just to put things in perspective, somebody says here, yes, that's true. St. Lucia was paying the highest for fuel in the entire OECS. Angie, look at what Dr. Timothy Drew did in St. Kitts, bringing relief and less expenses on his people. Will that ever happen in St. Lucia? Well, I don't know what he's doing, but I do know, just to put things in perspective, St. Lucia, under this SLP administration, has generally paid more for fuel than any other country in the OECS. And somebody else is saying here, Angie, St. Lucians are accustomed to misery. They love misery because they voted for SLP just to beg. Okay. Tough. I've been looking at gas prices throughout the OECS, and I'm telling you guys, if St. Lucia is the benchmark, well, we've always been the one that pays the highest. Well, I mean, from the time Philip J. Pierre took office, we can only guess what the price of fuel in St. Lucia will be. So St. Kitts and Nevis, as of May 1st, the cost of fuel is $18.09 EC per gallon, and Nevis has a slightly lower price, $17.38 per gallon, due to a more recent fuel shipment. Let's try Dominica. The price of fuel in Dominica is between $13.06 to $15. Oh, I just missed a call. But we're about to wrap up anyway, so I don't think. Caller, I'm giving you 5 minutes. Call back. But I don't, because we're about to wrap up. It's 4:30 already, but I just want to give some As of late April, gasoline in Dominica retails for approximately $13.06 per gallon, and diesel is $13.36. Well, it's actually $13.06 to $15.57, and diesel is $13.36 to $16.95. Kerosene is $13.92. Let me see what's going on in Grenada. $17 per gallon in Grenada, and that is as of April 18th. But that, well, actually the price is capped. Okay, we have a call on the line. You are our last caller for the evening, for the show. Good afternoon to you. You are on the air.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Angie, and your listeners.
Good afternoon.
Angie, I heard you say you're about to wrap up the show, and I'm thinking, Angie, allow me to wrap up the show for you today, please.
Go ahead.
Angie, in a nutshell, I will start with these two words, and there are three words. These three words, Saint Lucia. In a nutshell, Saint Lucia fini.
Boy, let me tell you.
High cost of living, as in electricity, fuel, cooking gas, groceries, clothing, shoes, food items. Everything is through the roof.
Everything.
Highest cost of living ever. And then bad roads, really terrible roads that they're patching up now because Jazz is here once again. Patch all over the place. No new jobs have been created, absolutely none in the last 5 years. We have no new jobs. There's very little construction in terms of the normal individual building a house. Okay, people say there's construction. Yes, there's island resorts. There's a little bit of construction that way, but we do not have construction, wide scale of construction. We have the lowest housing ever. We do not have housing stock. We are at a place where we're paying the highest taxes ever in our lifetimes in St. Lucia. We are not making any more money, more monies in salaries. So everything is not balanced. Once again, we're going through St. Lucia labor. We're going through labor pains. We're going through the most severe labor pains we've ever felt before. So in a nutshell, let me end by saying St. Lucia fini. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that caller. Well, you heard it here, guys, right here on Fire FM. Cost of living is turning St. Lucia into a dead zone. It's inevitable, and it is about to get worse. Now, we've been asked so many times as a people to tighten our belts. Tighten our belts, make a sacrifice, and live more frugally for the good of the country. We've been told everything under the sun. Manger plus fig, eat what you watch and watch what you eat what you grow, harvest rainwater. But when you're already doing all of that and still struggling, and you're facing the inevitable rise in the cost of fuel at the pump, rise in the cost of electricity, water, goods and services, what do? How do you cope? Well, no words, guys. I have no advice for you today. I don't know what to say. We're all in the same boat, and God help us all. Thank you for joining me here on Hard Talk as we discuss, as always, the issues that matter. Don't touch that dial in the next half hour. Mr. Foster Chico is joining. It will be in studio with Full Disclosure, and you don't want to miss it because you know Full Disclosure is always very exciting. Thank you very much for joining me, those of you on the Facebook platform, those of you in St. Lucia on the or out there in the diaspora, and also those of you on the Fire FM link and your 107.7 FM frequency on your radio. Thank you for joining us. Stay strong, St. Lucia. Stay strong. Bye-bye.